Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Boruto Manga chapter review. This one's going to be for chapter 39, which is called Proof. First of all, apologies for not being on camera for this video. I usually do that for the Boruto Manga chapters. When the chapter came out here, it's pretty late and I kind of need to record the video today, so I thought it was best to just do the audio and have some images on screen here. Hopefully for next time we'll be able to go back to being on video. Better this way than having just me with really horrible lighting. But anyway, let's get into the chapter. I think overall this is a pretty solid chapter. I think it sets things up for the next chapter very nicely right at the end. Has a few interesting kind of pieces of information, covering the info that they need to. Only real critique about this chapter I would have is that I think there's maybe a little bit too much of focus with regards to the page count on the Shikamaru talking to Kawaki, then Shikamaru talking to Boruto, and just kind of arguing back and forth about can we or can we not trust Kawaki. In terms of, it just feels a little bit too much like it's a lot of stuff that the audience already knows, that it's just the chapter catching Shikamaru up on this stuff basically. And I understand a certain need to do that, but with the monthly format of this feeling like the pacing can be very slow at times, this chapter I think stood out a little bit for maybe going in a little bit too far, having a few too many of those scenes with Shikamaru. Again, I get what they were going for and sort of the need for them, but I think we maybe would have been better off jumping over to see a little bit of Sasuke and Sakura. I get they're sort of teasing, they're holding off for now on Sasuke's back in the village, but him telling everyone what happened, the full details, and that you have to hold that back because it's kind of important for the rest of the story that they don't have all of the information, and so Sasuke just revealing everything would take away some of the problems that we sort of have right now with regards to information. But I would have at least liked, after they showed Sasuke come out next to Sakura, to have some sense of towards the end of the chapter covering Sakura's reaction and rushing Sasuke to go get medical aid or healing him there on the spot. Even if we didn't get to see him talk, I would have liked to see that brought up at least a little bit, covered. But let's get into it, going through it sort of page by page. So we start off with sort of a recap from the last chapter, which was of course Kawaki looking at the smashed picture of Naruto and the now sort of depowered artificial arm, because Naruto's chakra isn't active anymore seemingly, so they don't know what's happened. Is Naruto, has he just died or what? And this is when obviously Boruto comes in and they have to alert him to the fact that it seems like Naruto is gone or something's happened to him. So immediately, just before they can act on anything, Kawaki is hit with a shadow paralysis jutsu because Shikamaru and some Leaf Jonin are here. Shikamaru, obviously with Naruto gone, is basically in charge of the village here because he's Naruto's advisor. And he's just trying to figure out what happened to Naruto. And of course he suspects Kawaki for this because he's the sort of security threat in the village right now. So the barrier team puts up a barrier around Naruto's house. And what I like about the way Shikamaru handles this is that he does let Kawaki out of the paralysis here, in that he respects Naruto's decision to allow Kawaki a certain amount of freedom, but Shikamaru is much more suspicious of Kawaki than Naruto is. So he basically just says, don't do anything stupid and everything will be okay. So Kawaki basically fills everyone in. The enemy Naruto's fighting is Jigen. He's the de facto leader of Kara, and he suddenly appeared in front of me. And they quickly figure out that this is likely space-time ninjutsu, and that's a real bother, that it basically gets through all sort of security. So that's the main problem. So the reason why Jigen took Naruto is because Naruto interfered with Jigen's actions, and he took him away to eliminate him. And they kind of figure out that, oh, like, Sasuke is one of the only other people who has time-space ninjutsu, so that's kind of their really only opportunity to free Naruto from wherever he is. So they don't have the information yet, so they're just trying to figure everything out. Shikamaru does want to know, are you hiding anything, Kawaki? And this is where obviously the rest of the kids sort of begin to sort of turn a little bit here and be like, why are you being so suspicious of Kawaki? Because we trust him. And Shikamaru has to be like, I kind of never trusted you from the start. That's why I have to be this way. Sorry. I think you're a member of Kara, and, you know, he doesn't want to spout out conspiracy theories, but he has his misgivings here, and that's kind of the main point he's getting at here. So Kawaki's going to be put under house arrest until they can prove that Kawaki didn't do anything. And Kawaki is willing to accept this, of course. He understands where the suspicion would come from, and Boruto is the one who really wants to stand up for Kawaki in all of this. So, before we get to that, we do cut away to see what's going on with Kashin Koji. And these 2 pages are pretty interesting because we know he's in the village. He's here sort of monitoring what's going on. We know he has a connection to the village, but they still haven't told us yet what that is. Who he actually is. I think that's going to be a very big reveal once we get it. So, Kashin Koji basically talks aloud here and basically just explains his thoughts on the situation. It basically amounts to the fact that he figures out that because Jigen hasn't returned yet, that likely means the fight against Naruto and likely Sasuke hasn't gone as easily as he wanted it to. So he likely hasn't returned because he doesn't have enough chakra to come back using his time-space ninjutsu. That means he's weakened in the aftermath of this fight, so I might actually be able to take down Jigen myself. So he's going to head back to the base to see what's going on while still maybe trying to stay undercover. If he thinks Jigen is still too powerful for him, he'll just act normally. If not, he'll try and actually take him out. So it's going to be interesting to see if Koji does actually act here or not. I wonder how long they're going to wait to reveal the details about him, but I think he is going to be very important as we kind of go forward, in that he clearly, his main goal here is clearly to defeat Jigen in some way, and he's doing that by being undercover in Kara. When is he maybe going to realize that he might need to join the side of the Leaf Village and so on to make that happen, is the big question. But we do cut to back to the Kara base, where Amado is kind of monitoring the chakra of Jigen or Ishiki, whichever way you want to call him. And he's like, you had too much fun out there. You have almost 0 chakra left. It'll take 2 whole days to go back to full again. Jigen points out that it's a bad habit of mine. I got happy and ended up getting carried away. So Amado wonders what's there to be so happy about. And Jigen is happy because Kawaki is kind of growing so much. The power with his karma mark, he says, is ripening at an astonishing pace, and he's no longer just a simple incomplete vessel. And they wonder back and forth, is it progressing so quickly because he's next to another karma mark user and it's resonating off Boruto's one? And he says, yeah, that's likely the case. Kawaki's has progressed so much, Boruto's must be developing quite a bit as well. And this is where we get the very interesting line here. He shall awaken as a perfect Otsutsuki. They'll likely both become powerful Otsutsuki. A gigantic divine tree shall grow, huge enough to devour all life on this planet. And in this panel, visually what they show here is, of course, a divine tree, but also Kawaki with the Otsutsuki horn kind of sticking out, as if he's using that level of karma mark, and Boruto with the same, Boruto with an Otsutsuki horn. So the question here is, are they directly confirming here that what a karma mark is that it is effectively just makes someone an Otsutsuki. Because the understanding that like I have, at least my take on it right now, is that when an Otsutsuki is defeated, they can choose to leave their like essence behind within someone, likely who just defeated them, would be the most obvious one from a like power perspective. And it may appear at the start that it literally is just them granting them a power, that the person who killed an Otsutsuki now has this extra ability that they can activate as time goes on that makes them more powerful, and it gives them sort of the powers of an Otsutsuki. And when you use it to a maximum degree, you visually gain some representation of what that Otsutsuki looks like. That's what the horn is. And they seem to be pointing out here that it likely is the case that as the power grows, the karma power grows, the, I suppose, influence of the Otsutsuki essence within them grows, and it pretty much is just, it's almost like this power growing that will eventually just take over your body, and the Otsutsuki is just back. They now have control over a new body. I think that's the idea that they're going for with this power, because I think they are trying to create this sort of duality between Boruto and Kawaki, that they both have the karma mark, but they're both going to go down different paths. Kawaki is going to become the next vessel for Ishiki, and I suppose his karma mark will go the way it's expected to and just be the next vessel. But Boruto with Momoshiki will likely have a defense against being taken over by Momoshiki because he has the Jogan, which I don't think the manga has specifically mentioned the Jogan. I think it's been mainly an anime thing, but I believe Boruto does still have it. I think it is an important thing that they'll bring into play eventually as being the big thing that allows Boruto to sort of use the power of the karma mark without needing to worry about being taken over by Momoshiki. Again, I think the stuff with like Toneri before he was like put in some sort of a ceiling thing for like a million years or whatever it was that he was talking about Boruto as if he is the sort of the hope, like the star of destiny or something like that, I think was the wording of it, and that the Jogan is like an example of that it is an ability that will activate when it's needed. And I think that's why he's sort of confident about Boruto being important, despite apparently being affected by a Otsutsuki way of taking over the body. But anyway, after this, the conversation continues with Amado and Jigen. Don't worry, Amado, everyone's wishes will be granted, including yours, of course, suggesting that maybe part of the reason Kara formed, how it formed, was that it was Ishiki offering everyone who joins him a wish that would be granted once he's able to fulfill it. So Amado has a wish, and it clearly relates in some way to Delta, because he looks over at Delta and there's a sort of almost like a wistful expression here, as if like he has some regrets about this. But Delta's just like, what are you staring at, geezer? You're creeping me out. I'm counting on it, Jigen. So he really deeply cares in some way about this wish that relates to Delta happening. And obviously we know that Delta is sort of like artificial in some way. Is it someone important to Amado? And is there some way that like he can restore her in some way? I don't know. There's going to be some sort of a backstory that I assume we'll get the explanation for. But anyway, we do cut back to Shikamaru, Boruto, and Kawaki. This is where Boruto starts shouting at Shikamaru that he refuses to believe that Kawaki's a spy, and this is kind of what we expect from him. Boruto trusts Kawaki now fully. He brings up the point, he sacrificed his right arm to save Himawari and Dad. Why would he have done that if he was a spy? And Shikamaru is being, I think, the character you expect him to be here. He's being logical. He's not just agreeing with Boruto. He isn't usually, especially older Shikamaru, isn't usually the character who will just go for the friendship kind of trust thing every single time. If you give him enough of a logical reason to believe that's the right way to do it, he will be that way. But usually he's right to be suspicious. So he says that no, house arrest will stand, and we'll continue to figure out if he is or is not a Kara spy in some way. This is when Kawaki begins to sort of reflect on, I suppose, the difference between his two sort of father figures in his life. Jigen, or Ishiki, who primarily sort of raised him, and the sort of cruel words he would constantly say, calling him just a vessel, that he's empty, versus how kind Naruto has been to him the entire time, that he's the Hokage, explaining to him the value of, chakra, the binding force, and the fact that he's willing to give him some of his chakra to allow this hand to work for him, and stuff like that. And especially focusing in on the moment of Naruto hugging Kawaki. I think especially it's pretty emotional stuff. And he says to Sarada, "Why has Lord Seventh been so kind to me? Why is he willing to look me straight in the eye? Why?" And Sarada, responds to this and says, "Yeah, as if you're actually family, right? There have been times I've wondered for real how much better my life might be if Lord Seventh were my dad. I'm so jealous of Boruto and annoyed at his constant griping, his ignorance of being so blessed. But you see, to Lord Seventh, everyone in the village is his family. That's who he is, and you just feel safe in his presence, utterly safe." I think that's a pretty nice back and forth between the two of them, to just help Sarada to kind of develop a little bit more by interacting with Kawaki more herself, to create more of a dynamic between those two. And I think it was a good opportunity to do that, because Sarada looks up to Naruto in the same way that Boruto looks up to Sasuke. That's the way that Sarada looks up to Naruto. So her bringing that up, that she wants to be Hokage, and she wants to kind of have the same sort of ideals that Naruto has, and the fact that she just points out, to Naruto, everyone in the village is his family, and him basically, you feeling that way is kind of confirmation that he basically considers you part of the village. He trusts you, and that is something he never had with Jigen. Just the idea of, I suppose, feeling safe. So Boruto continues to argue with Shikamaru that it's wrong to doubt Kawaki. At this point, a Jonin brings out the vase, the cracked vase that's been repaired mostly. And for some reason, this Jonin, again, he's a Jonin here, considers this to be a curse jutsu ninja tool or something like that in some way. Boruto rightfully calls him an idiot for thinking that this is the case. And I think a lot of people will be just calling this the idiot Jonin from here on out, because it makes him look pretty terrible that this is the case. Like, it might have been okay if it was a Chunin who said this even, but a Jonin, that was the level Kakashi was at the start of the series. We're saying someone on that level is doing this. But anyway, the point is, he brings the vase up, and Boruto, I suppose, sees it mainly intact once again, and is impressed that Kawaki would go to such lengths. But Kawaki just points out, "You're the one who told me to fix it. Besides, there's still a hole left in it." Shikamaru, on the other hand, reveals here that he's actually heard this story. So this is the infamous vase, huh? And Boruto uses this as another example. Why would someone who's a spy bother to put a vase back together just to sort of gain the trust of Boruto, effectively? Why won't you believe this? And Shikamaru just again says, like losing his right arm, it doesn't serve as proof that he's not a spy. And Kawaki's just give it up, Boruto. You'll just make things worse. At which point, the artificial arm reactivates, so it's getting chakra from Naruto again. This is a really, really big thing, because we thought, because he was sealed away by Jigen, none of the chakra could get out. But it's activated again, so what's gone on here? This causes Kawaki to obviously put the arm back on and activate again. He can sort of sense the chakra link again. And so Kawaki decides to immediately act. He tells Boruto, "Work with me." He activates his karma mark and attempts to create a time-space ninjutsu portal. We see the mark with the horn go on his hand with the karma mark. suggesting, of course, he's using the full karma power. Boruto's mark also kind of changes to something I don't think we've seen before, and also begins to do the same thing that Kawaki is doing. So together they do manage to make a full-on time-space portal that is waiting there to be hopped through. Shikamaru is shocked by this. Mitsuki is shocked. Sarada is shocked. Everyone is shocked that this has happened, even Boruto. But this is Kawaki understanding, really for the first time, that he is this sort of copy that just exists to sort of be the next vessel for Jigen, and that of course he has the same abilities as Jigen does. If Jigen can create a time-space ninjutsu, so can he. He just has to develop that ability to do it on his own, but with Boruto together they can do it. So he just figures that out. What's the specific wording here? It's the whole being on the same wavelength thing. I've got the same ability. So Kawaki is about to walk through. He says, come on, we're going to rescue Lord Seventh. And everyone is planning to go until Shikamaru arrives and Shadow possesses everyone to stop them from going into the portal. But Kawaki just absorbs the Shadow possession jutsu with his karma mark. Mitsuki grabs Boruto and Sarada. He goes through the portal, and Kawaki goes through the portal as he says to Shikamaru, you just need proof, right? Fine, I'll get it for you. Last 2 pages are the big tease for the next chapter. They are in the other dimension, and they see a guy across the way, and he's recognized by Kawaki. He reveals that it's Boro, another inner member of Kara, and in some ways he's even worse news than Jigen. And of course Boro recognizes Kawaki. If it isn't Kawaki, oh joy to get to run into you here. So that's the tease here, that we're through the portal here, and it's going to be, you know, our 4 kind of young characters here versus someone who is pretty close maybe in level to Jigen. This is not an ideal matchup, even 4-on-1, with 2 karma mark users and a potential Jogan that could activate at any point. It's still really not ideal. Maybe if they're able to use their karma mark to the full degree, Jogan, Mitsuki goes full Sage mode, and Sarada does some impressive Sharingan stuff, maybe then all together they'll be able to beat this guy. But the setup is ultimately that this is a terrible matchup. This is a really bad thing to happen. Their decision to go through hasn't really been good, and likely this is a trap set by Boro, because he is standing next to a sealing chamber that looks basically identical to the thing that Naruto was sealed in. It's just obviously much, much, much smaller. But Jigen did have the ability to make things big and small. So is this just what Naruto is sealed in miniaturized? And that Boro could have literally just temporarily allowed like a peak of the seal to open, let some of Naruto's chakra out, and they'd come running immediately. I'm going to assume that something along that line has happened, but ultimately we don't really know the full story about what's going on here. What role does Boro play within Kara as an organization, and what's the idea with him ultimately? Overall, I think, like I said, pretty good chapter. Maybe a little too many pages, like I said, focused on the kind of Shikamaru arguing with Boruto, Shikamaru explaining to Kawaki why he suspects him. Just a little bit repetitive, but I get what they needed to do with those pages. But the tease of like something's going on with Kashin Koji right at the end, like a big fight seemingly, getting to, I suppose we'll find out what Boro's power is here, potentially who he is. There's the opportunity to get the Kashin Koji fight maybe with Jigen next time out, plus catch up with Sasuke. Maybe even we'll find something out about Naruto coming up next. It's a very interesting one in that like we're in some big chapters now, and that we don't really know exactly how things are going to play out. We kind of big picture sort of know where we're eventually heading, which is Kawaki likely will become the vessel for Jigen. How exactly that happens, we're not sure. and Boruto is eventually going to have to, get to a point where he opposes Kawaki Ishiki once we get to that point. But beyond that, like, we don't really know stuff like Naruto being sealed away here. Is this the same situation that has happened to Naruto in that, like, chapter 1 in the future type moment and stuff like that? I think chapter 40, I think it has to be a chapter that reveals some things about Kara. I hope we do learn a lot about that, because right now we're a little bit in, like, kind of lost territory at the moment, and I do feel that we need to get back on track in terms of knowing what we're actually doing. So I'm going to assume that next chapter they probably will have Sasuke revealed to, like, Sakura, and probably to Shikamaru as well, what has happened to Naruto, and this will create a real panic about all the kids just went through the portal, they're in pretty bad danger, and how exactly are they going to, like, solve this issue? And again, it comes down to, like, is Kashin Koji going to have to sort of reveal himself in the Leaf Village to get the trust of the Leaf Village, and find a way that side of things, team up with Kashin Koji to win the day? There's so many options they can go for, but we're still in very, very important content for sure. But this was more of a setup chapter, I do think. It was definitely like a bit of a, we're slowing things down a bit from the previous chapter, which was huge, and building up again to a bigger one. But still pretty good stuff. But yeah, that's been my thoughts on the chapter. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on this chapter 39. Definitely let me know what your thoughts were on some of these really big moments that were happening here. What do you think is going to happen next? But that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.